Hi there, Sean.
Oh, there we go. That'll be better if I unmute myself. How you doing?
Good, good. I'm Rafael. I'm the one that contacted you on Twitter. So thank you very much for being here. And yeah.
Hi, you're most welcome.
So
Forward to
let's.
it.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, yep. Let's wait like 2 or so minutes so we could wait for other people. Then you're free to start.
Okay, awesome. Great. Can I share my screen? I've got some slides that are.
Also, Sean, I'm just letting you know that this workshop will be hosted on YouTube if that's fine.
Oh yeah, that's all good.
Thanks.
No worries at all. Let me share my screen. Should be able to see that.
Yep.
Awesome.
Hey, Sean, I think it should be fine to start now. And if anyone just came in, I think uh, the workshop is recorded, so they should be fine.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for attending, for those of you attending. And if you're watching this, thanks for taking the time to watch this. So I'm going to cover off some of the things of getting into cybersecurity and why cybersecurity is so important. It's a really interesting field with a lot of potential. Can be really frustrating at times, but after a while and after much effort and frustrations, it is still very rewarding. So just a quick bit about myself. So I go like Sean Wright on Twitter and Twitch and those channels. My background is not particularly cybersecurity. I started off as a developer and then I moved into security. Unfortunately, when I left university, there wasn't much in the way of cybersecurity. It was a very niche field. You had to basically do consulting work in order to get involved in security. So when I was leaving university, trying to get the first job I could, ended up being development. And I always had an interest in security. And I guess it stems from the part of just tinkering around with things, trying to see how things work and break things and that kind of thing. And it's very interesting. So anyway, I always try to keep some sort of security wherever I went. And then thankfully, I managed to get into a company that really opened up the doors for security. And I've been doing that since beginning of 2013. So almost 10 years now. The reason why I mention this is to set some context behind some of the background that I have, where I've come from, the things that I've seen, and then that can help give you some sort of view and thoughts of where security is and where it's going. And some of my own personal thoughts. So yeah, that's a bit about me. I'm very active on the likes of Twitter and trying to get a lot more streaming done in terms of like Twitch and YouTube, and then attend as many of the local conferences, security conferences as possible. Really, really, really keen on getting younger people involved. I think it's really important, as I'll highlight later. We've all heard the skills gap and that kind of thing. And we need to make sure that people come in and have this passion and interest, because it is a really, really cool field to work in. So I guess we can start off where were attackers, like hackers come from, and how did it evolve? So the one photo on the right there is from an actual movie called War Games, and that was kind of late 80s. And that was kind of reflective of what was happening on that scene when you talk about a hacker. This was long before things like the real internet that we know today, where you're always online. Back in the day, you had to dial into a connection. So you had things like modems, and you had people trying to bypass that because it costs a lot of money to do that and get online at that point in time. Especially when you have younger kids doing this, they want to test things and talk to their buddies and all this kind of thing. So you had people hacking to try to get online. So they would dial what's called like wall dialing, which dialing different phone numbers and even using different tones in that to try bypass the phone companies and essentially get on without paying that cost associated with them. So if you compare that today, it was at the time probably a big thing for the phone companies and that. But if you look at it today, it's like, yeah, it's crime, but there's much bigger problems. Similarly, there's the image on the left there, that's from the kind of the de facto movie about hacking and security, and those are appropriately named hackers. And it's the one movie that most in security absolutely love watching on camera watching. It's kind of the golden movie for security and cybersecurity now. And then there's some plots about some evil person wanting to take over the world, and Zero Cool, which is the guy in the middle there and sitting on the bench. He comes and saves the day, and he breaks in and does his magic and all this stuff, works with the government to prevent some bad things happening. That's probably starting to form more reflective of where we are today. So if we go and look today, you might think, okay, well, we've seen it in the news, very advanced, sophisticated people, but in reality, it's not. So the TalkTalk hack, which was in the UK, TalkTalk is a major communications company. You're talking millions and millions of pounds, dollars in revenue. So a pretty significant size organization. And when they got breached, they thought they came out with, it's all these advanced attackers, and that it actually turned out to be I think they were teenagers in and around the UK and the Republic of Ireland. Just recently, Lossos, which have leaked significant things, most notably was Okta. Now, Okta is a big security company. Again, those were late teenagers, early 20-olds that were involved in that. So in reality, a lot of these attacks aren't actually always sophisticated people doing it. It's younger people that just are very inquisitive, very talented, and unfortunately are doing the wrong things. But there are, unfortunately, others who are doing some of the cybersecurity breaches and incidents. So you've got things like nation states, which is what the picture on the top left there is trying to represent. So these are where governments are often the common ones are that are have fingers pointed to, but it's not always just them. There's things like China and Russia and North Korea, but all governments in reality have some degree of doing this. And these are what's called nation states, and these are probably really sophisticated attacks on a really large scale. So you're talking massive infrastructure behind it in order to analyze a lot of data and all that kind of thing, as well as very deep pockets to buy fancy equipment and hire the right people and all that kind of thing. On the bottom left there is more towards hacktivism. So groups like Anonymous, who believe in a cause or believe in unjust things happening, and they will go off and do find holes in that to exploit. So probably the recent example is Anonymous with Russia, where they went off and did some things to the Russian government and that type of thing. So they believe in a cause. I'm not going to say whether it's right or wrong. That's entirely up to each individual, but they believe in it, and they'll go off and basically hack to further their cause and their justification. And then probably the biggest thing that's starting to evolve more and more is organized crime. So that's what that picture on the right there is meant to represent. So that picture is from Prohibition, where they weren't allowed to sell or consume alcohol. And organized crime these days, kind of like that, where you had organized gangs in Prohibition doing things like moonshine and that kind of thing, selling alcohol in different establishments and hidden away and all of that. Well, these days you have groups that do cybercrime on a scale, and it's really, really, really well organized. They essentially almost run as a business. So they have all sorts of things that is quite surprising. They have, I forgot the exact things that they have, but if you go read up online and that, you can find that they align a lot of things to actual business. They have like code of conduct and all this kind of stuff, which you wouldn't expect from an organized group. But the point is, these organized crime gangs, cyber criminals, are becoming more and more prevalent, and that's because there's more and more money in it for them, and they're becoming more organized. So it's becoming a big thing. So that sets some context behind some of the existing cybercrime and where hacking is. So there's also a conception of hacking is bad. If you go actually look at hacking itself, it's not really sitting in front of a computer breaking into something. The whole notion of hacking is trying to tweak or do something that is something's not being designed to. And that's not always a bad thing. You could find a problem where you hack around it and get it working to do a good thing. So hacking's not always a bad thing. Unfortunately, it has this negative perception and image around it, but it is not a bad thing. But cybercrime is a bad thing. Now, there's been a lot of cases where some really talented younger people have done cybercrime, and they're really geniuses. They're really good at what they do, but unfortunately, they've done it for the wrong reasons. And you really don't want to go down this road. At the time, it might seem like all cool, and yeah, it's great, and you're getting a slap on the back with your friends and all of that kind of stuff. But it could jeopardize your future. So you could find yourself facing things like jail or prison sentences as you get older. You could have things like a criminal record. Now, a criminal record is often really bad because it can impact certain things in your future, such as if you want to move to another country, that could jeopardize that. Or if you want to get a certain job in a certain sector, again, criminal records can have an impact on that. So you really don't want this on your history and your resume and all that kind of stuff. So don't do cybercrime. It's not worth it. On the flip side, what you can do is become a cyber professional. Now, you get to kind of do the same stuff, but you don't have the risk of going to jail and have all the bad things happen to you. You also have a really cool thing is you get paid for doing this stuff. So you're getting paid to do what a lot of the criminals are doing. And yes, they get paid, but you now get paid without all this risk of going to jail and criminal record and that. And that's also the right thing to do. The other thing is the cybersecurity industry at the moment is just crazy. I've seen just salary just starting to explode. So it's a really, really, really good field to be in, just from the monetary point of view. Shouldn't just do it for money, but the money does help. And salaries are just climbing significantly. So if you want a really stable, steady job that pays really well and a good career and path forward, cybersecurity is one that I would always advocate for. There are things like brain drain that we've heard, or skills gap, and that's only going to get worse, which is why we need people like you coming into the industry to help build up those leaving it, or those even just leaving it for other things that they want to do. And there's just simply not enough people. It's a good thing for people like myself, because it drives up the market and all of that, but it's still not good, because then we find ourselves overworked and all of that. That's why we need people like you. And just to re-emphasize, like on the left there, it's people doing bad things, ending up in jail. Doesn't look like they're having fun. On the right there, those are some of the things you can do in cybersecurity. There are conferences, and these pictures were taken from 2 conferences in Las Vegas, DEF CON and Black Hat. And I think I'm pretty certain who's having more fun. And these are the kind of things that you can do. Once you get into a role in cybersecurity, you can collaborate with people. You can go to conferences like DEF CON and Black Hat, often paid for by your company with travel expenses and all of that. And you can have a good time learning new skills, meeting up with people, and then things like after parties and all that good stuff. Or if you don't want to, there's if you're not into the whole party scene and all of that, there's smaller conferences such as like B-sides and that, which is still some sort of element of after party. But the point is, if you do things legitimately, you end up having a lot more fun. You don't have the risks involved going to jail and that, and you're doing it all for the right reasons. So having cleared that up, where do you start? Like, so you now have decided you want to do the right thing, you want to get involved, and you want to start your path down and getting into cybersecurity. Well, one of the things I really recommend is Twitter. Twitter is huge. I recommend it because I myself have personally gained from it significantly. I joined towards the end of 2017. At the time, I was about 4 years into my career in cybersecurity, and I just kind of hit a ceiling where it just felt I wasn't going anywhere. Ever since I've joined Twitter, I've met people. I've even got my last role via Twitter itself. You share ideas, you collaborate, you meet. As I said, you meet new people, you make friends, you make groups. So I'm part of a group called the Beer Farmers. That the sole reason that exists is because of Twitter. And from that, things like a conference came about and people got jobs out of that. So you can see what a powerful tool social media, especially the likes of Twitter, can be. But act responsibly on there. Just the word of caution. Don't try to be too clever in that, because you never know who you'll come down later in your career. So be as pleasant, respectful as you can on there. Now, in terms of tooling, there's some really cool tools out there. So this is where you can actually hack these things, and you can go to hot content on these systems. There are some limitations, so just make sure you read them. Like, don't break it for other players and that, but generally you're free to do what you want to do on these systems. And some of them will actually teach you along the way. So Hack the Box is really geared towards hacking something called capture the flag, where you're going to do basically hack into a system and find some sort of text, which is called the flag. And then once you've got that, you can finish the task. Try Hack Me is kind of CTF, but with a lot of training around it. So it will tell you different things that you need to do with a lot of documentation. So it's a really good way to learn as you go. And they have coverage of different areas. And then the last one is Pico CTF, purely focused on capture the flag as well. But this is a really, really good introductory thing. They have really easy challenges working their way up. So I would recommend starting with something like Pico CTF, maybe try Hack Me. And then once you're comfortable, start looking at something like Hack the Box. Get together, get a group of friends, approach these things together, form a group, use things like Discord channels and all that kind of stuff to collaborate. It can be a lot of fun. The other thing, like once you've got a sort of feel for it, is decide where you want to go. One of the things that I always ask when someone asks me, hey, I want to get into cybersecurity, is where do you want to go in cybersecurity? It is vast. There are so many different areas that you can go down into. So many people just see, okay, the de facto hacking something, which is equivalent of penetration testing. So you go to companies and you try to break into their systems, and that's legally and ethically and all of that. That's one area. So penetration testing. There's things like red teaming. So red teaming is trying to act like the bad guys, but again, ethically and all of that stuff. There's blue team, which you're trying to have defense. There's AppSec, which is what I'm involved in. So making sure organizations securely develop their applications. There's audit, compliance, like there's a whole wealth of things. So go to Hack the Box, go to the likes of Pico CTF, have a look at those, and those will give you a rough idea. The other thing to consider is, like, it is often easy to switch streams in cybersecurity. So if you find that, or you worry that, oh, if I stick to choose this, I can't move. People have gone from like red teaming or AppSec to red teaming to a penetration tester. It's relatively easy to switch streams. So if you find that 5 years down the line, it's just not for you anymore and you want to do something else, it's pretty easy to do that. The other thing is reach out, especially if you're doing the likes of Twitter and that. The community is always willing to help. As long as you're respectful and ask in a nice way, you almost always will get someone that's willing to help you out, give you ideas, give you advice, sit down with you, go through things. So ask. If you are interested, just put it out there. And I know, especially younger people, we are always keen on getting the younger people involved, included, especially if we want to make sure they're doing the right thing as well. So please, please, please reach out. And then have fun. This is one of the reasons why you want to do this is you can do a lot of cool stuff. And doing some of the stuff is really fun. I'm not saying like you're going to get a job and you're going to have fun all day, every day kind of thing. But for the large part, you're going to have fun most of the time. And if you're not, then try switch a stream or something like that. Find something else that interests you. But by and large, most people have fun, really enjoy their jobs. And hey, you get paid for it. What more could you ask for? So yeah, get involved, ask, and have fun. So, any questions?
I actually do have a question. So, would you recommend any certifications for beginners, maybe CompTIA A+ or e-learning securities AGPT? Would you recommend any beginner certifications?
So certifications are an interesting one. My view on them, I'm not a big fan of certifications. I think too often people get hung up on them. Don't get me wrong. I think they are important. But I wouldn't focus too much on certifications. Focus on finding what interests you the most and then going down that path. Certifications can come later. If you are really looking for certifications, easier ones are like, I think Security Plus. There's Ethical Hacker, which I think's not too bad, but certainly be wary of things like OCSP. That's really hard, and it takes a lot of effort to do something like that.
Also, would you recommend doing capture the flags for beginners to learn cybersecurity? Because it's like more of a gamified way of learning cybersecurity.
Yeah, absolutely. I would recommend that, doing it in a group as well. Try the one thing I would caveat with that is don't go for the harder stuff first. There's nothing more demotivating than trying to do CTF and you just getting nowhere. So things like doing it as part of a group and starting off maybe on the easier ones is something that I would recommend. And don't be despondent. I mean, I'm terrible at CTFs and I've been in the industry for quite some time. It's not always really absolutely reflective of the real world, because you can learn how to use tools and you learn the way that the creators of these challenges think sometimes, and that, but eventually gets it, and it can be a lot of fun. So definitely recommend it.
Thank you. We have a question from one of the attendees. They said, what is the importance of getting a degree in computer science?
So there's often a debate like, yeah, you must have a degree, or you don't need a degree. My personal view is I would recommend getting a degree. University teaches you a lot of things. Personally, I learned more about learning on your own from university that I learned actually in the coursework, but that's different degrees in that. So my view is I would recommend it. Is it absolutely necessary? No. There's loads of people in it without a degree. As long as you have the knowledge and passion, you'll be able to make it. Those are far more important than any degree or certification.
Thank you very much. Is there any more questions that Sean could answer? Also, Sean, would you recommend anyone interested in cybersecurity doing bug bounties on the side, or would you stray away from bug bounty as much as possible?
That's a good question. I actually didn't even mention that. So bug bounties are another good way of ethically hacking, and you can earn money. Earn money on the side there. So, yeah, there is another good element to that. Is it's real world experience. So something like a CTF and that, yes, you can put that down on a CV, but it's not really relevant in the real world in the sense that, hey, I broke into the system or found this vulnerability in this challenge. Where as a bug bounty, you can go, hey, I found all these vulnerabilities in these systems. Here's the record in that. So I definitely recommend that. Again, just set expectations, because there's nothing more frustrating than spending hours and hours and finding nothing. And you will then just go, you know what, I'm done with cybersecurity. So just be mindful of that. Set time limits, set appropriate expectations. There are also loads and loads and loads of books online. So I recommend getting one or two of those books and reading them first, and then start on your way on bug bounties. But a really, really good way of gaining experience, potentially earning. Some people earn pretty decent amount of money from it, and yeah, having some fun along the way.
I think, do you have any more questions? I think okay. I think last question before we end the workshop is that, is there anything fun, I guess, jobs in the defensive side of cybersecurity? Because we always see, like the hacking, like red teaming and penetration testing as a glorified side to cybersecurity. But is there any fun things in the defensive side of it?
Yeah, so that is a really good question, an interesting question. Personally, from my side, application security, you could kind of see it as more defensive, but the thing that people don't see in AppSec is you do a lot of penetration testing and maybe even some red teaming to a degree. So you still get elements of that fun within that area. And yeah, there's a lot of blue teaming, but you still have that fun. And ultimately, some people just prefer sitting on the blue team, helping prevent issues and problems and that. It's going to be a matter of personal preference. But if you want to do something like maybe the best of both, best of both worlds, AppSec.
Thanks. I was like thinking more on incident response, at least in my taste, but definitely AppSec is a interesting field in cybersecurity. That was, yeah, it's a very interesting field.
It's also becoming more and more in demand. So in terms of career progression and salary and all that, it's a really, really, really good field to be in at the moment.
Thank you very much. I think we don't have any more questions, so I just want to thank you, Sean, for doing this really, really cool presentation. And yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, and hopefully it's been a help. And if you need any further information of us, just feel free to reach out to me.
I would leave Sean's Twitter on the Discord server, so if you want to reach out to him, then you can definitely will. Thank you.
Great.